trigger happy and I give less than a fuck. Love me or hate me, I'ma show enough, rip shit up. It's Mr. Nothing, nice on a mic stand. Mic in the left and the zest in my right hand. I took a puff, had enough now, hold up. If that was Indo, niggas getting rolled up.
Welcome, folks. This is Acid Root. So I'm going to talk to you guys about Eminem's 2004 album, Encore. Now, this is kind of a plagued project, and next to like Revival and Relapse for some strange reason, but next to Revival and Relapse, Encore is basically a pretty plotted album that's not taken in a very positive light. And I'd like to kind of be one to kind of help bring forth the change in that more. I mean, I feel like this is part of an Eminem's original run between like basically the Slim Shady EP and Curtain Call from 97 to 2005, the initial first wave of Eminem releases before he went on his hiatus. And with this album, because he was taking a bow on the album cover, a lot of folks thought he was hanging up the mic. And back in those days, you know, before Twitter and Instagram and that type of stuff and most social media, it was kind of underneath the concept that Eminem might just, you know, call it quits after 4 albums. Now, the thing I liked about this project is, despite the fact that a lot of people didn't like Eminem's silliness on this record, it has a pretty strong palette of topics, basically up there with the Eminem Show. I'll just go ahead and list a few. So Eminem talks about his distaste for George W. Bush. He talks about, you know, his care for his daughter Haley. He talks about the after effects of the beefs that he's in with like Ja Rule and Benzino and that type stuff. He talks about his increasingly failed relationships with Kim and other women. He parodies Michael Jackson. He talks about America in a song. There's just numerous type things on here, and he sharpens like his lady song. So there's numerous kind of topics on here to the point where I can definitely say that despite like the fact that maybe people didn't like this project just because they thought it was too silly or too sarcastic or too lazy, he did really go all out in terms of the things he was talking about. Like, I don't feel like any of the topics, that's one thing I can safely say about Encore, is the fact that I wasn't bored with like what he was talking about. It was really kind of charming in the sense of how this album kind of wound up coming off and having like a good palette of things to kind of present and do it in like an engaging manner, which is definitely good. And that shows that's a product of that, because there were 6 and almost 7 singles off this project. This is basically Eminem's most promoted album, which is really good. I mean, I kind of feel like the concept behind it is that maybe it's up for debate as to how many of these songs hit, but I like just about every one of them. Basically, I would have to say every one. But we'll go ahead and talk about that. So the first single was Just Lose It. Really kind of a club song, a typical kind of comedic, silly, maybe not silly, but just kind of lighthearted song like Eminem typically does with like the Real Slim Shady and Without Me and that type stuff. Even My Name Is. And this one has an extreme focus on Michael Jackson. And back in those days when Michael Jackson was still alive, it didn't sit well, and it was kind of a controversial song at the time. Eminem kind of went with some controversy on this album, which added an extra element to this project. I'll talk about that more, but this one such controversy was talking about Michael Jackson, and it's a pretty solid song. I mean, it's really light. It's not quite as lyrical as like Without Me. I feel like if I had to compare Without Me to Just Lose It, I'd probably say Without Me is better, but this one's more sing-songy and more hip-hop, just kind of more of like a bounce, kind of like Nelly, kind of Ride With Me type vibes. It's just easy going. You know, I'd say teenagers can like it, that type stuff. The second single was Mosh, and this is another controversial song because Eminem was fed up with George Bush, and this was in a year, the 2004 election year, where George Bush was getting ready to run for his second term, and Eminem was trying to help sway people to vote for John Kerry, the other presidential candidate. So, I mean, that's kind of the concept there. I really enjoy the beat on Mosh. Just really kind of, like, it feels so, like, dreary and just kind of, like, bad. It just feels like a thunderstorm kind of song, like thunderstorm kind of production where this is very brooding and gloomy almost, just the way it is. It almost feels like a rock rap song, like something Limp Bizkit would do on a politics type song, but this overall great beat. I just would have to say I really appreciated Mosh. Eminem was on point with that song. Third single was Encore. This has Dr. Dre on there also and 50 Cent. It was because of this song that folks thought that Eminem was going to hang up the mic, and this, I suppose, could almost have been another controversial song, just because it's kind of, Eminem and Dr. Dre haven't put out music in a while, and Eminem might be hanging up the mic, and everyone's like, well, no, you've given us 3 good albums, give us like 20 more. But it's a simple beat. It is kind of a club beat. Eminem and Dr. Dre on a club type song. I wish they would do way more songs like this. This is what Eminem and Dr. Dre need to take it back to, especially nowadays. It's just overall good. 50 Cent he doesn't really lay a verse on the song, but he kind of adds like the extra after effects of being on there also. He just kind of adds like extra touches to the song. But yeah, I would have to say, like, the next single is Like Toy Soldiers. This is kind of a controversial one. It's almost like Eminem talking about his rap beefs, but he doesn't really start any beefs as much as he kind of says, like, I'm fed up with doing it, and I'll do it more if I have to, but I really don't want to. And I really like the sample on this song. Samples were pretty popular back in those days, especially with Kanye West and stuff and Cameron. But I really feel like Eminem did a pretty solid job with this sample on here, and it's just an overall militant kind of song. It has real militant production. Eminem just tears the song apart, keeps it real put together well, and it's pretty much engaging the whole way through. It's another serious song. It's not comedic, and it's not silly or anything like that. So it's just Eminem talking about previous beefs and comparing him and 50 Cent to like toy soldiers that are just shipped out sell records and that type stuff. That's kind of the thing. Mockingbird was kind of a more emotional single. It's a different side to Eminem. For the most part, he never really tried to showcase like his care for Haley in a song and that type stuff, but he does this time. And it's a parent song. It can definitely be a father, a mother type song, that type stuff. You just would have to say, I mean, Eminem by this point was starting to phase out of being quite as drug based, or maybe not quite. He wasn't quite at the point of phasing out, but he was starting to be more responsible and that type stuff. So it was just kind of seeing that sort of record. I mean, there's not many occasions where I listen to this song, but I at least appreciate the emphasis and the effectiveness of just getting to the 5th single and being able to nail it. So I think that's kind of something there. And then the 6th single, this was a really good one also, is Ass Like That. This one is a comedic. He takes it back to the vibes he had from Just Lose It. And, I mean, he really doesn't even rap that much on here. It's just mostly just him rapping as like a gimmick, kind of talking like Triumph, the insult comic dog, kind of rapping in like an accent like he does on Relapse, and it has a really nice beat, really nice sitar kind of beat. I haven't heard too many rap songs use a beat like that. Really original. It's an overall funny song. I mean, he nailed it because up to this point, there were just hardly ever songs that kind of had that same kind of comedic pitch. It was just good. I mean, I give him 2 solid ones. These are kind of vibes like Ludacris does, Ass Like That and Just Lose It. The Ass Like That was the 6th hit, and it nailed it. But I'm also going to talk about a secret 7th single. Like on Wikipedia, I used to look this record up back in the day, and some Wikipedia articles back in the day kind of said that there would have been a 7th single after Ass Like That was supposed to come out in late summer of 2005, which was going to be Crazy in Love. And if Eminem broke away from his anger management tour with 50 Cent and D12 in like the late summer of 2005 because of sleeping pill addiction and that type stuff. But that was it was kind of like a rumor or something that was the single he was going to put out had he not went to rehab and stuff. So he would have put out Crazy in Love and really kind of went to town with Encore, but it just never happened because Eminem was falling apart at the time. Crazy in Love is a decent song. I mean, it's kind of like, I don't like this song as much. If he would have dropped it as a single, I probably wouldn't have liked it as much, but I can see it being like a good relationship song. It's definitely more of a bop than, and it's less bitter than Superman was. It kind of goes along for the ride of it, but uh, just I don't know. It just depends upon the day. I mean, it's not every single day that you would feel that way, but it's just kind of the concept is it's kind of it's up and down as to which day you feel kind of crazy in love and that type stuff. That's kind of the situation. The rest of this record really has some moments on here. I'll go ahead and talk about some of these. Like 50 Cent, Nate Dogg is on here, Obi Trice, Stat Quo, D12. The usual suspects are basically on here. It's basically an in-house type thing. There's just some overall really fun moments. Eminem sharpens like his ladies joints. There's a number of ones. I'm also talking about the deluxe songs. There's 3 extra songs besides the 16 that are on here. Like songs like Love You More, Mockingbird for like children, Crazy in Love, Ass Like That, which is kind of a flirty, sarcastic number towards women, and then Spend Some Time, which is kind of a bickering kind of song. Eminem has a number of songs on here that just have a lot more comfortability, maybe not a lot more feasibility, and just kind of, you know, ambience with women compared to how he was on the Eminem Show, where he was just talking about getting STDs and not wanting to be their Superman. And that's kind of the concept, where now it's kind of more, it seems like there's more kind of characteristics about it, and it has more kind of just versatility in that sense. And it's not to the point, it's just kind of more of like an open field where it's not necessarily R&B rap, but just more selective fields, kind of saying that there can be some women's songs for when you're hanging with your girl and that type stuff to kind of have in addition to listening to Eminem and that type thing. So it's good to kind of bring your girl along for the ride and kind of have her listen to Encore also. That's a possibility. And you know, there's some other moments, like he tries like some storytelling with songs like Rain Man, which he kind of talks about how he's getting tired of going to like the courthouse getting sued by people, and Yellow Brick Road and Evil Deeds. So you get some backdrop on Eminem's past a few times. And then he also does like some comedic songs. Like there's several like Ass Like That, Puke, Just Lose It, Big Weenie, and Rain Man. So there's a number of times where he tries it. I would say about half of the project really kind of does it. I feel like Puke and Ass Like That and Just Lose It are funny enough, and they have like good draws to them. To talk about Puke, I definitely feel like that's just an overall super sarcastic song towards Kim that works extremely well. It's just like Ass Like That, where it's kind of a gimmick song, but just the overall sheer obnoxiousness that Eminem has on that song is just really an attribute. It just really works well. Once again, this is another type song that they haven't made very many of, and it definitely works. But Big Weenie was a bad example. Really kind of ugly singing on that song and a pretty ugly beat that just makes it pretty almost instantly hard to listen to. And like there was another one like Rain Man has a similar beat to Big Weenie, but it's really kind of, I mean, the lyrics on the song are good, but it's just kind of a plodding and kind of generic kind of song. It just really doesn't stand out at all or come off as anything beyond like a generic album cut. That's just kind of the concept. And but yeah, just to kind of talk about some of these moments, there's like there's a healthy palette of a lot of things, like some serious topics like Mosh and Like Toy Soldiers, and some comedic moments like Puke and Ass Like That, some good posse songs like Encore and Spend Some Time, which really has good verses from all of them, and I like them introducing Stat Quo. It's really too bad that he never dropped Stat Lana. And Nate Dogg very quietly was on this album, but he did well. I wish he would have been on here at least one other time. But yeah, that's kind of the concept about it. So I just would have to say I'll go ahead and list the songs that I enjoyed and recommend to you out of 19. So there were 13, so I favored this album pretty damn well. So the songs Never Enough, Like Toy Soldiers, Mosh, Puke, My First Single, Just Lose It, Ass Like That, Spend Some Time, Mockingbird, Encore, We as Americans, Love You More, and Ricky Ticky Talk. So to kind of talk about a few of these, like a little bit more, this review is kind of getting packed to the gills, but Ricky Tikki Talk has one of the best beats on the album, and Eminem really tears that song apart if you're looking for like a lyrical where Eminem feels more inspired. And I will say on Eminem's lyrics on Encore, it seems like he's on autopilot. Now, these lyrics are not bad, but it's just lazy because he doesn't try to eviscerate them. And he at least was he was less on autopilot on the Eminem Show, but it just feels like he's either reached a point where he doesn't have to try and can still kill it, or he really was just being lazy and didn't feel inspired to actually try. But either way, that's kind of the concept. It's listenable either way because not many folks were on par with Eminem back then, but it's just something to pay attention to. And I'll list a few more of these, like Never Enough has a really great beat, and 50 Cent, all three of them do good on that song. I like Spend Some Time, nice kind of bickering kind of song from all of them. Obi Trice did well. It's good to see him do another song like that with Eminem. And there was another political song that was really good from We As Americans. Songs like White America, We As Americans, and Mosh. Those are some good moments. It's kind of a nice extra genre from Eminem. So yeah, I was really impressed with like this song palette. And I'm going to go ahead, me liking 13 out of 19 or 10 out of 16. If we're just talking about the original Encore without the bonus songs, I like 10 out of 16. I'm trying to think if I described enough of these, but just to kind of say, I guess I could talk real quick before I score it. Well, I'll go ahead and score it first. So 10 out of 16, I would say I give it a 7. 13 out of 19 is basically most of it. I would say if I would have liked like even 2 more songs, it'd probably be like an 8.5, even a 9. But that's just kind of the concept. Just a solid 7, just to say good. But this feels like it's missing a slight album cut or two to really say that it's top notch. It's a larger album than the Eminem Show, but it's also not as lyrical as the Eminem Show. So that's kind of the concept. It just feels like a more mellow and more kind of comedic and raunchy type album, but I appreciate the new angles from Eminem. It's definitely encouraging. But all right, so like I didn't like the production on Evil Deeds and Yellow Brick Road. They were both kind of bland and tasteless. And My First Single was good. That's a song I haven't talked about, but I felt like the hook on that song was really ugly. It's still one of the songs I liked, but the hook was pretty ugly on that song. I talked about Rain Man being kind of bland. Big Weenie was probably the worst song on the album. Crazy in Love was kind of hodgepodge relationship song, but it just didn't have enough days in the ofteness where I'd want to listen to it. And One Shot, Two Shot, I felt like the beat could have been better. It was kind of an underwhelming D12 song, and pretty much one of the last songs they did. But so yeah, 7 out of 10. And the social score I will give a 10 out of 10 just because it had 6, almost 7 singles, and this was Eminem's biggest album for the most part. He really crested with this project, and had he not went to rehab and took 5 years off, until Relapse came out, I definitely would have said that this would have been basically like one of the best runs that he had for one of his album rollouts. But it's just really too bad that it didn't see that way. I mean, Eminem was unhappy at the time, and that's another concept, was he was on drugs, he was unhappy, he had the beefs in the presidential election that he was upset about. So there's a number of things that were probably having demons for him. But at least it resulted in good music. It's just too bad that it resulted also in like a hiatus of such things, and it detracted from his health. But that's the situation. It was a good album. Social score was good, and the future Eminem's getting ready to drop Curtain Call 2, so I'm going to review that soon enough. So stay tuned for that. So we only have one more Eminem album, which is basically just Music to Be Murdered by Side B. So we'll see what's up with that soon enough.